Welcome back to the PT Graduate Podcast. I'm very excited today to introduce my guest, Niki Loe. Welcome.
Thanks, Rich. Happy Wednesday.
Fantastic to see you, and thank you very much for your time. It's been great to just to be organising this and to find out a little bit more about you. But of course, we want to share that with other people as well. So so tell us a little bit about yourself, Niki, in terms of perhaps the one I like to start with is how did you get into the industry? You've been doing this for a while. You're an experienced hand, and there's quite a long list on my notes that I have to read out in terms of some of the things you've done. But wellness wizard, I quite like that. I like the alliteration. Educator, naturopath, medical herbalist, nutritionist, and PT. And I'm sure there are other things as well, but we can get into those as we get chatting. Yeah. So tell us why this industry, what got you into it? Why did you choose this one?
Look, I was a kid when I first started out in this industry, and it became very clear to me very early that working with human beings was something that I wanted to do with my life. And so when I was 15, I joined a gym. At the time, I was playing a lot of netball, and anyone that plays netball understands that some strength training to complement that can be very good, especially for your knees. And so I'd been playing netball for a lot of years by this time, started to feel some achiness in my knees and thought it'd be great to balance out with some strength training. So I joined a local gym and I became absolutely obsessed with group fitness. And before I knew it, I was going to a group fitness class after school every single day, weekends, anything that was available, I was there, until the owners said, would you teach for us? Like, what if we put you through your training and in exchange you taught some classes for us? Right. So I went on to teach classes right through high school. And the first class I ever taught, I will just never forget it. I'll never forget being on this stage. My heart was racing. I was absolutely terrified. But a little bit of background is that as a kid, I really struggled with self-confidence. I really struggled with my perception of my body. And I got up on this stage and looked around. The music was playing. And I just had this feeling looking around that every single one of us was standing there with a completely different life story, background. We all looked different. But the one thing that brought us together was that we were all just there to feel something good. We all wanted to feel something better for our lives, to feel stronger in our bodies. And that moment was so special that I knew right then, I am going to be working with humans for the rest of my life. And that was well over 20 years ago now. And I still love humans more and more every single day. And I think regardless of those qualifications that you spoke of at the beginning, what qualifies me best to work with other humans is my own humanness and understanding how hard this human experience can actually be. Because I've felt broken before, physically, mentally, emotionally. And so I know how to hold that space for someone who's going through that too. And it's an absolute privilege to do that.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think that's where a lot of that empathy comes from, isn't it? The experiences that we've been through that we can then identify in others, and so be so helpful, but be so useful with those people going through that. Be interesting to hear a little bit about the difficult stuff, because I know you've had a number of hip surgeries, and that must have been really challenging for someone who's so used to moving. And obviously teaching it and sharing it with other people, how you coped with that, and some strategies that you may have used that actually help get you through that, because I'm sure there are people out there in the same situation. There have been things along the way that have stopped them doing what they wanted to do, and it's sort of keeping that light alight at the end of the tunnel.
And turning it into a big light, which it definitely didn't feel like a light at the time. Breaking my hip kind of felt like it was breaking my heart at the time. But as I said, I started teaching when I was so young, and movement became a voice for me. Movement became medicine, but I had no idea where that road would take me. I certainly had no idea how hard it was going to be, but I certainly didn't know how beautiful it was going to be either. So when I left school, I did a traineeship in sport and recreation. I went to the Australian Institute of Fitness and studied to be a personal trainer. I moved to New Zealand for a year. So a little bit of background, when I joined that gym, that was in Tamworth, New South Wales. So before I was anything, I was Niki from Tamworth, New South Wales. It's the country music capital of Australia. You'll either know that or you've never heard of it. So no exaggeration that I grew up surrounded by kangaroos learning how to line dance. That's a little bit of my background. But then I moved to New Zealand when I was 20 for about a year. And during that time, sustained a terrible hip injury. And at the time, it was diagnosed as a labral tear, which presented in a way that I found it very difficult to walk. It was very stabbing, acute pain. I was having that treated here and decided to move back home to Australia, where I was referred to a surgeon and had my first hip surgery at the age of 21. But 6 months later, after a very short amount of relief, these same symptoms kept coming up again, and I struggled to walk for a really long period of time. Long story short, I ended up having 3 surgeries in the space of 18 months, with 2 months off work with every surgery. So I spent 6 months pretty much unable to walk in a very short space of time, at a time where I was young, enthusiastic, bright-eyed, and ready to take on this fitness world and share my love with people. And I wanted to share that medicine and that magic with them. And then I'm finding myself somewhere I never imagined that I would be. And I'd be lying if I said I had this light, at the time. In the beginning, I found it very difficult. I felt brokenhearted, really, really down. But every surgery I had was a practice to do it again, to do it right, to get it better. And I just knew. I think that time was such a pivotal time for me, where I made this decision in my mind: I am not prepared to feel this way anymore, and I'm going to fight to turn this into something bigger than even I know. So I did everything I could. I put in the work, I read books, I used that time to broaden my mind, to study, to learn. I had to keep my mind busy, and I had to keep myself in a state of growth, knowing that at the end of this, I was going to be even better placed to help human beings with this experience and taking that time to learn more. But if I fast track it, I then did dive into this, beautiful career for another, say, I'm trying to think how many years later, 6 or 7 years later. Fast forward, I'm now living in New Zealand full time. I'm married a Kiwi, so I've been here now nearly 14 years. But not long after we got married, it seemed out of the blue, I started experiencing significant hip pain again. And this time it was worse than ever, completely debilitating. I was in a lot of pain for a really long period of time. Over the course of a year or so, I struggled to walk. I was on crutches for months. And I saw a series of surgeons, each one of them who told me there was nothing that they could do to help, that I was too young for a hip replacement. And the last surgeon that I met before I had some kind of answer was a surgeon who actually explained to me that it was so difficult to treat what I was experiencing that he recommended I quit my job, lead the most sedentary lifestyle that I possibly could. And hopefully that would bring some pain relief until I was of an age that it would be appropriate to have a hip replacement.
Oh, crikey.
And then I met this wonderful superhero surgeon who is renowned for his big heart and daring to do amazing things. And I met this surgeon called Matt Brick, who said to me, I can't make any promises, but I think that I can do everything that I can to help you if you want to give it a go. And it turned out he performed a surgery on me that he had actually had on himself. So it's kind of this amazing ripple effect. He too had endured a hip surgery. He had to go to America to have the surgery to learn how to do it himself, and brought it back to New Zealand. Wow. He was the only surgeon who did this specific surgery
Yeah.
at the time. So an absolute miracle that I met him. And I ended up having a total labrum replacement where part of my IT band was taken from my leg and
Right.
constructed to create a new labrum for my hip, which is,
Wow.
obviously what supports our hip with our ball and socket. It's that beautiful absorption tissue that we need. It turned out I had none left, so no wonder I was in a lot of pain, even though I was so young. But that was my biggest trial of all. I wasn't able to go for a fitness walk for 6 months after that to make sure that everything was healing. I wasn't allowed to put my foot on the ground for 8 weeks after that surgery. But that was where I went in, I think, braver and wilder than ever to recover, unlike I ever had before. And I think at that time, I realized the power of our mind. And I came to this conclusion that as human beings, every single day we are underestimating our power. We are underestimating our power to love our bodies, to heal, to overcome, and to achieve things that we never dreamed possible. And it was during that time I decided I needed to offer more than just movement like I was doing. And so I quit my full-time employment to create my own business so that I had the flexibility to study full-time. And that is when I completed a degree in naturopathy and herbal medicine and became more obsessed with the human experience than ever before. And the surgery was wildly successful, but it took a lot of work as well. And I would say that to anyone going through surgery, often surgery is just the beginning. Even to this day, 8 years later, I'm still putting in the work and doing the clamshells and doing all the things and nurturing my mind and making sure that outcome is going to be long lasting.
Yeah. Wow. What a journey. That's mind blowing. So you may have already answered this, but what are some of the things that you did sort of mentally? Like you talked about keeping the light big and bright as opposed to, at the end of the tunnel. Were there some specific things that worked for you from a mental well-being point of view?
Yeah, sometimes you really do as a human have to go into dark places to find the light. And in the beginning, I'd love to say that joy was always there on the surface, but I went really inward during that time. There were times where I just needed to be by myself. There were times where I needed to cry and really be with my feelings. And the truth is, when I really let myself feel all my feelings, that's when I could figure out what to do with them. And I still see that with humans right now. I think we try so hard to keep it together, to have this outlook, to have this front that everything is okay. And in doing so, I think that we tend to push things down as a means to survive sometimes. And sometimes it is pure survival mechanism. And I know it because I've been there. I really have. And so when I experienced that permission to let go, to cry, to say out loud, today was a really shit day, like that felt good. And so now I love giving people that permission. Have an outlet, let yourself cry, whatever that looks like for you, write it down. I like to have a big old ball in the shower. No one can hear you. You don't have to explain yourself. You're wet anyway. So number one, have an outlet to truly feel. That was the first thing for me to know what to do with that. And as humans, we don't often run towards joy and pleasure. Joy is something I speak a lot about now because I think it's the foundation of health that is not talked about as much as nutrition and movement, but so important just the same. But we tend to run away from pain. And I know I found my true joy by running away from pain for sure. But when we can start leaning into joy on purpose, that's what I decided to do. I started to think to myself, how do I feel? And if it was something I didn't want to feel, it was, okay, let's reframe that. What am I no longer willing to feel?
Right.
And that is still something that I like to ask the humans that I'm working with now. Like, it's not just what do you want to feel? What are you no longer willing to feel? And in doing that, I started to create a life that was a life on purpose. I was determined not to let life happen to me, but to show up for my life every single day on purpose, to decide when I woke up in the morning that today was going to be a good day. There's still permission for things to go wrong. This is the human experience. It's supposed to get wild sometimes. That's just the way it is. But if you can start your day with intention, if you can have a ritual in the morning that sets your mind and your sense of hope and joy on the right trajectory, that will transform the way that you see your day, that will change everything, to whether you scull your coffee or devour it intentionally, to how wild you get if you get every red light on the way to work or not. It will change the way that you treat yourself and you treat others.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I want to say, which again was the biggest power player, and if anyone is going through a difficult time physically, mentally, emotionally, then this is what I want them to hear. For me, as you will know, I speak a lot about joy, but I also speak a lot about self-love. And I was really nervous to talk about that in the beginning for fear it would be construed as something quite fluffy and unicorn-like. And I want to say, from someone who has been through more than I knew I was going to go through in this lifetime, that sometimes you have to understand that loving yourself is the bravest, scariest thing that you will ever do. It's actually badass. There's nothing marshmallow about showing up for yourself and being brave enough to be who you really are, being brave enough to fight for something. And I had to do everything wrong with my recoveries, especially in those earlier surgeries, to figure out how to get it right. And this is what I figured out along the way. I figured out that you have to fight for your body, but that you can't fight against your body. It is just not a fight that you can win. And I figured that out really quickly. The harder I fought against my body, the more my body resisted. Can only imagine the more inflamed it became. Kind of like if you're having an argument with another human and you say inflammatory things to each other, things get out of hand. But if you throw love at that and you fight for something and with something, I know this sounds kind of woo-woo, but like I can't explain to you how my body responded when I made a decision to stop fighting against her so hard and just put some of that energy in learning how to love her for the first time in many years, maybe since I was a really little girl, and even though it was the biggest recovery I had to make, the biggest surgery, that fourth one, was by far the fastest, most joyous and confident recovery, because I was loving my body every step of the way, not trying to force something, but taking rest when I needed to, crying when I needed to, and remembering that she's on my side. Like, we're in this as a team. And if I didn't make fast friends with my body, we were never going to get through this together. And you don't have to go through 4 hip surgeries for that to apply to you. I see people fighting against their bodies every single day, and it doesn't have to be that hard. The missing ingredients are the practices of self-love, the art of joy, because that is what will sustain your outcomes and your results for the rest of your lives. Otherwise, what's the buy-in? Why would you why would you bother working so hard to look after a body you don't love?
That makes total sense. And it's a shame how quite often you see those people who are disconnected from themselves or from their body. And it's not a quick fix. Sometimes it can take a long time to help people understand or reframe it, like you say, for them to be able to look at it in a completely different way.
And please don't think it has to be a quick fix. I mean, mine wasn't. Mine took years. I'm just trying to fast track it. I'm trying to use my experience so that others don't have to spend quite so long getting to that place that they so deserve.
The great thing about the way you come across is that you embody all the things you talk about, the self-love, the joy, it oozes from every pore. It's so obvious that is your message, because not only does it come from your words, but it comes from your body language and the way that you come across so well. And I was thinking about, before we hit the record button and the last sort of 24 hours, knowing we were going to chat, and I have to say, I think you're one of the people, thinking about of all the people in the industry I know, you're one of the people that embodies being themselves, or is authentic in themselves more than most. And they say, be yourself, because there's you can't be anybody else, or be yourself because it's the best way to differentiate yourself if you're looking at it through a business lens. And I think, regardless of that, I think it's just an authenticity that you bring with you, with everything that you do and everybody you interact with. And I think it's a beautiful thing, because you clearly inspire those around you, but also that will have a knock-on effect for all of those humans that you talk about in terms of your clients and the people that need some help, need some support. And it's not just the instruction you give them, it's the way you live that is the inspiration, I think. I'm really struggling to put this into words. Hopefully I've communicated that well enough.
That honestly, that means so much, especially for someone who really did struggle to love who she was, let alone be brave enough to share that with anybody else. And that's where we all have to be brave enough to just be exactly who we are. And you never know whose life you're going to change or who you're going to inspire. You have no idea how one smile to a stranger on the side of the road could be the best thing that happened to them all day. But for anyone listening to this, you deserve to live a joyous life in a body that you love. And that is the foundation of everything that I offer. I have many different offerings, but they're all just different ways to gift wrap that very message, to get you to a place where you believe, that you do deserve that, a joyous life in a body that you love. You only get one.
Yeah, that's the essence of it, isn't it? Have you become a hip expert as a result?
Do you know what? I literally was even just speaking to Matt Brick today, actually.
Oh, right.
I'm having a conversation with him and sort of mentioning how through my own journey, the law of the way the world works, I start manifesting, people who into my work and into my life who are going through big things with their hips as well.
Right.
And what a joy to do that. Of course, I've become obsessed with hips because I want to make sure mine last me for the rest of my life as well. And that they, I intend on teaching movement till I'm 100 years old or beyond. So I need to look after my hips.
Yeah.
And it is a privilege to work with others, and anyone listening who, are working with certain populations. That's what I always say, find your special people, because if you're working with someone who's going through or who is somewhere where you have been, the passion and the empathy and the care that you have for that human in front of you cannot be taught. It's so real that you want them to overcome, that very feeling that you once experienced too. And it can lead to some really special relationships. So I would never say I was a hip expert, but wow, am I obsessed with hips. And I always say life is too short not to have a great bum. And that's because great glutes are a very important part of that.
They absolutely are. They absolutely are for many reasons. So where do you see clients? I know you work, is it Grey Lynn?
Yes, I work at a little place called Studio in Surrey a few days per week, where I have literally what I call my movement family. So the people that I'm working one-on-one with now are people I have, most of whom I've worked with many years. Last year I had a 10, 11, 12, 13 and 13-year anniversary with humans that I get to see every single week for over a decade. So I spend more time with them than most of my family. They mean so much to me. So we've really gone on this adventure together. But I also have what I call a 3-month body love adventure. So my because I see so many beautiful humans in that capacity, I want to also create space to meet beautiful new humans who need support or who really need to take a deep dive into their health, mentally, physically, or emotionally. And so I offer a 3-month Body Love adventure where we really take a deep dive into the human experience, because we know that one session is not enough to change our life. Even if we did the world's best nutrition, movement, wellness program, there's so much more to unpacking it than just receiving a to-do list. And I love the opportunity to really meet someone with where they're at and use every tool in my joy box to really make a difference in that person's life. So giving them the tools and strategies they need from a self-love and joy perspective, naturopathically, nutritionally, movement-based, every element that makes up the very complex interplay that makes us human. So it's a beautiful exchange both ways, where we have the time to not rush, to really, really explore and experiment, to create what I call a unique body blueprint that then make it to take with them into the rest of their lives.
Brilliant. And so that 3-month program, does that also happen at the same facility, or do you do that separately, or do you do it remotely, or how does that work?
So I do all of my consultations online, and that has enabled me to work with people near and far. I never would have dreamed that was even an option before the world that was 2020. But during that time where we all went online, I found myself working with people all over New Zealand, Australia, UK, and now I have the opportunity to do that. That's very special. But if you are here based in Auckland, then absolutely we can have some of our movement sessions in person at the studio, which is great. I love to get hands-on. So that is certainly, there is opportunity for that as well. And this every year is just about how many people that I get to connect with, how many people I can help understand how truly magnificent they are. So this is the year of experiences. I am hoping on running many more retreats and events and online and in-person experiences in order to do that. So in line with what we've been talking about, my next retreat is on March 17th, and it's called the Love You Retreat, which is all about loving who you are in a very beautiful setting in Bali Garden up in Matakana.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. And is that somewhere you've used before for retreats?
Yeah, I've had some magical retreats there last year, the year before. It's a very special place. As soon as you arrive, it's like if we did nothing but spend time in those gardens, something magical will take place. It's beautiful.
Right. And are those weekend retreats, or are they longer than a weekend? How does
They're
this?
just day retreats. One perfect day that's especially for you. I know it can feel really difficult to get away for a whole weekend, although that is certainly something that I would like to do later on this year. But I love removing that obstacle and simply asking someone to invest in one beautiful day for themselves. I think that's so important, to press pause in order to do that. And it's just so important to have things to look forward to. We all know how wild last year was. Everyone, you know, is saying the same thing. I've met with so many people at the start of this year who said this has got to be the year for more balance, more peace, more harmony. We're all craving that. So we have to be booking in advance things to really look forward to. And I really want to be able to create that experience and opportunity for people to do that.
That must be quite a full-on day. You'd cover quite a bit, I imagine, if you're looking at the movement side of things, the nutrition, the naturopathic element. There'd be a lot of learning.
A lot of learning, but I always want to strike that balance of education, inspiration, and just pure bliss, pure experience. So we always start the day with movement under the palms outside with the bird song and the trees. It's very beautiful. As you know, when we've started moving, we're much more receptive to learning, but it's important to add a little touch of luxury as well. We have beautiful food, have a glass of champagne over lunch. It's just a really beautiful day to learn, to connect, to laugh. There's an education section, but also we then wrap it up with a beautiful, blissful element at the end of the day where we're simply melting over bolsters and meditating and just
Okay.
really escaping everything else for a
Yeah.
little while and learning
Yeah.
how to be. We're so good at being human doings and forgetting that we're
Yes.
actually human beings. So that's the
Yes.
biggest goal of the day.
I like that one. So do you get a lot of repeat customers, those who have been before and go, I just need more of this? And that the idea? Do you want them to come back, or is it more like, well, actually, I've given you the stuff you need, go away and do it? How do you approach it?
I'm a treat yourself kind of girl. So if you found great joy in being there at a day like that, I am delighted to have you come back again and
Yeah.
again. And it's so special and humbling when that has been the case and these beautiful humans decide to come to another retreat and another retreat. I love that, but I also love that every time there'll be someone there brand new who is gifting them this experience for the first time, and it's then my job to show them how important it is to do something so special for yourself.
Yeah.
We're so good at giving and giving. And there's this, we all hear that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. But for me, that always gives this illusion that we have to do these beautiful things to fill up our cup so that we can pour it out to everyone else. I like to remind people, it's okay to fill up your cup and then drink the whole thing yourself too sometimes, right? Like sometimes you're allowed to fill it up so you can drink it yourself.
Yeah, it's not just so others can keep emptying it. Yeah.
No. So I want you to remember that too, anyone who is listening. It's just this beautiful body. If we don't look after it, we want to be there for our loved ones and we want to be there for everyone else. But sometimes it's okay to say out loud, I want to fill up so I can be here for myself in this lifetime as well, because I deserve that. It's a hard thing to say sometimes, I know.
Yeah. And I think it's good that, that's your mission to remind people, remind everybody that, because there aren't enough of us doing that and reminding people that, I use the stress bucket metaphor, which is almost the opposite of the cup. If the bucket's filling up, then, you need to stop and let some out so that there's some capacity left for other people, and, it doesn't overflow. And that's when you flip your lid.
Yes.
And when people hear that, go, you can tell it's a new concept to them, and they haven't really thought about how they manage their day, their week, their months, their years, their life, their family, and keeping everything in balance, which isn't always possible. But understanding that just that little bit of time for yourself in a busy day can make the difference between the day ending well and the day being a terrible, or feeling like a terrible day.
I know. And that's where I like to call in a non-negotiable me moment, because that is so hard to get it right. And I never want anyone to hear me saying this and think, oh my goodness, well, this girl doesn't understand just how busy my life is. I do. I understand that some people have more on their plate than they ever could have imagined, but there just has to be one moment in the day that is divinely yours. Just one precious moment to come back into your body, whatever that is for you. A song is a really amazing way of changing your state of being. Immediately I'm thinking of cranking Beyonce, or it's just, a moment in the shower, whatever it is, it has to be something that is especially yours. Escaping for 5 minutes to read 2 pages of a novel, getting outside for a little movement, whatever it is, a non-negotiable me moment. And that comes back to living your life on purpose, because I think a lot of people will hear this and relate to what it's like for not just a day to sweep them up, like, oh, I have no idea where today went or this week. I know some people will relate to, I have no idea where the last 5 years went. It can all just wrap itself up so quickly, and in the process sweep us up with it. And having little moments in the day that bring you home to yourself, to your heart, that's when you can just stop, recalibrate, and make that intent to take a step forward on purpose, knowing how you want to feel, what you're no longer willing to feel, and what you have to do to make that happen for you and your loved ones. Really important.
Brilliant. I love it. Tell me a little bit about Glow School.
Glow School. Now, this was born out of my sheer love of movement. Movement is certainly my medicine. And it is my little love letter to the experience of being human. I've been teaching movement now for, I was 15, so 23 years, and I have studied many different practices, yoga, Pilates. I've done Garuda. I've done the next level, myofascial movement, which is where you and I first met.
Yeah.
I have studied so many beautiful styles of movement that it wouldn't be fair or correct to say that this is a yoga class or this is a Pilates class. And so it had to be this beautiful mishmash of movement that I've learned and just sprinkled my own nickiness all over it to create what I call glow. And it is about lighting up that inner glow inside of you. It is about bringing you back home to loving your body either again, or for some people, what feels like the very first time. And I know that I wish that I didn't have this much hunger for movement simply because of what I've gone through. I mean, I've always loved movement, but I always took for granted when I was younger too, that my body would just keep doing what I wanted it to do until it didn't. And so when I started in the industry, I was about the boot camp and the running and the rah. And then through going through my own experience of injury again and again and rebuilding my body again and again, I wanted to offer a practice that was suitable for everybody. So Glow is a class that is suitable for people to come along to, whether they are a kid through to 100 years old. There is absolutely a way that you can devour that entire class and make it about you. So I wanted it to be strengthening, uplifting, without adding a lot of impact. And I only ever taught this style of movement face to face. But then came 2020 and overnight, and I had always said no online. I was terrified at the idea of doing YouTube. I had had people say, you should do some YouTube. I thought, oh, no, terrified. But my love for my humans far outweighed that. I remember getting this announcement. It was on some weeknight, and I remember that night I was Googling, what is this Zoom thing, and downloading everything. Sending out an email to every single human that I worked with. And by 6 a.m. the next morning, it was a regular day and we were all online. This was happening. Brilliant. And I taught my first class online. So Glow School became a collection of these classes that we did. I called them our love down classes. And I did so many of them during our lockdowns again and again. And so I recorded them and uploaded them to this school where they could be revisited again and again and again. And since then, I have created and continued to film new classes to be added to that library. There are a few, so there will be full body movement classes anywhere from 5 minutes to 60 minutes long. There are some self-love meditations in there. There are a few little love bites around gratitude and embodying this human experience. And that just continues to grow every month. So there are now over 110 videos that you can access on online Glow School. It means that you can come and devour the experience anytime, anywhere, wherever you are in the world. And I'd love you to come try it.
That is very clever. Cool. So that's just another one of the services that that you offer. Fantastic. Brilliant. Tell us your tips. Tell us the things that have, I mean, I think you've dropped quite a few in there already, you know, specifically the physical stuff and the mental stuff, but maybe a bit more sort of business stuff, because that's really the reason for the podcast in the first place, is helping people get in and stay in the industry. And I think obviously your years of experience and tenure have proven that you're successful at what you do. But what sort of things did you said you've learned things along the way as well from a physical point of view. What other things have sort of stood the test of time for you that you would pass on to share with others?
I think that building a life of service as a job or something that you get to do is one of the most amazing things that you could possibly do. So when you talked about authenticity before, I would say really lean in and take the time to understand who you are and what you have to offer that is unique, because we are in a world now of information overload. You can scroll Instagram and have a gazillion different hot tips on doing this and that. And it can be really easy to think that you should be keeping up with the reels and the TikToks, but the human experience is right in front of you. So I would say, stay educated, always be a student, always be hungry to learn, invest in yourself. But remember that you'll never learn more than the art of being with that human in front of you. Listen to them, watch, and understand how unique each individual human is. You will have some sessions where the human in front of you, you'll learn more from them than they learn from you in that session. It's a beautiful thing when that can happen. So I would say, find your people, surround yourself with people who uplift you and inspire you, and who you celebrate, and in return they celebrate you. But the people that you work with, who is it that you can best serve? I love that expression, that you are best qualified to serve the person that you once were. So for me, I find myself working with people who are maybe being held back because they haven't truly understood the power of knowing and learning their self-worth and their self-love, and knowing that that's actually the missing ingredient. Or working with someone who is rebuilding a hip, or whatever that might be. Because you can't teach, again, that kind of connection that you have with someone. So be authentically you, and the right people will come to you. I guarantee it. I would say, if you're running your own business, it is important to build a brand and not just a business. So it's that same thing. It's understanding who you are, so that when people see you, when they see your website or your social media, they immediately get a feeling for who you are, because it permeates into everything that you do. So build a brand, throw love all over it, and fearlessly and relentlessly pursue your purpose and your heart. If you can remember one thing for yourself or for your clients, both of you, remember that there's a difference between a wish and a wish plus work. And the difference between a wish and a wish plus work is a wish and the wish that came true. So prepare to put in the hard work to be where you want to be, as long as that work is heart aligned. Not just the physical work, but really working on understanding who you are and loving who you are. Because a couple of years ago, I presented at Exercise New Zealand, and I presented on self-love to an amazing group of health professionals. And it was really important for me to ask at the beginning, who is actually here for their clients? Who's actually here for themselves? And all of us put our hands up for both. So I also want anyone coming into this business to understand, you don't have to have it all figured out, and you don't have to be perfect. In fact, you connect with your human best by being human with them and sharing that experience. But if you're going to ask your client every single day to believe in themselves, then you must first be able to look in the mirror and answer honestly, do I believe in myself? That's authenticity. So I would say, above any of those other tips, love who you are and fearlessly pursue loving who you are, understanding what your true heart desire is. What is your why? Because if you want to have a long-lasting, successful business, it will be because you based it on love. It will. And it will be because you were very clear on your why from the very beginning.
Yeah.
So when I said before, it's more about the mental work, not the physical work. I know what it's like to be a PT, start your business, and all of a sudden you're doing all the 6 a.m. starts, all the late nights, all the weekends. I understand that we have to put in that groundwork sometimes, but look after yourself. If anyone can relate to what I'm saying right now, I remember when I first studied, we were all terrified because they said to us, the average lifespan of a personal trainer just diving straight in head first is about 2 years, because burnout is a real thing.
Mm.
And it always stuck with me in my mind. It was okay to work hard as long as I was working hard towards my why, and not focusing on the work, but the human in front of me. That's what kept allowing me to grow and eventually find that balance that felt really beautiful. So when I say love yourself, I mean in every sense of the word. The way you're moving your body, the way you're nourishing your body, and the way you are living your life, because that is contagious, and your humans will be looking to you for that inspiration and that energy, because that's one of the saddest things you see. I see some of the very, very best personal trainers who are doing the most well curated, crafted, thoughtful programs that are incredible, but they're running out of time to create such beautiful programs and prepare good food and for their own selves. You have to love your body first. And I promise that is ultimately the secret to growing, showing everybody else that it's tough and human, but that you're right in there and you're doing it, and you're doing it with them. Someone just said to me recently, it's really hard, isn't it? It's really hard, like moving regularly and consciously eating good food. I said, yeah, keeping on top of all of it is really hard, especially when we're trying to sprinkle some self-love and joy practice, doing all the things. And never said it wasn't going to be hard, just said it was going to be really, really worth it.
Yes.
So love you first, and just because of that, your humans will feel that and be inspired to love themselves too. That's not about being perfect. It's just about getting up and giving it your very best shot every day.
Brilliant. Love it. I was scribbling. You probably noticed I was scribbling all of that down because it's good. Thank you very much. They will go in the show notes so people can refer to that. Just something that sprung into my mind as you were talking about that. Have you read Mel Robbins' book, The High Five Habit?
I haven't, but I love Mel Robbins. She's so rad. I've listened to a lot of her podcasts and I keep up with her work. But are you telling me I should read that book?
Well, I don't think you need to.
Maybe I should.
It's useful. I didn't really know. I knew a little bit about her. I've heard a couple of podcasts, that sort of thing. But what the High Five Habit does is it helps cultivate what you're describing, that ability to see yourself. You know, it's a high five in the mirror every morning, and it's a high five to that person that they see. You've got it. This is going to be a great day. Whatever. It's not just requiring an affirmation, but it's cultivating that daily connection with yourself, and that self-belief then builds. And the science backs it up. She quotes the science as well, and I think for people that are hearing what you say, and I'm hearing it loud and clear, but maybe going, well, yeah, but how? What? You know, what's the best way in? I feel like I need more of that. Obviously, they need to contact you, but that's why the High Five Habit jumped into my head, because it sort of rung bells and parallels with what you're saying about, you know, that connection to self, that self-love, that
I love that
belief. Yeah.
And you're so true. It's so much easier said than done. And I want to make it so clear that self-love, you know, it's not a surface level thing. It's not an inspirational quote that you're going to see on pink as you're in pink scrolling through Instagram feed, even though one of them might be my quotes. But you know, when we dig deeper than that, it would be do things that scare you sometimes. You know, like sometimes being brave enough to do something that terrifies you is an amazing way to affirm yourself that you've got this, because you're being brave enough to, it's you telling yourself that you are worthy of growth, that you are worthy of doing something that you think might even be bigger than yourself. Sometimes self-love is not waiting until you think that you feel ready. You don't have to feel ready to be ready. Sometimes you just have to, again, be brave. It's a motto I live by. Just be brave when I get really terrified.
Right.
If I hadn't taken that advice, I would never have presented. I would never have done a podcast or a single post, because I'd be terrified about what everyone thought about who I was. We get in our head a lot, and worrying about what other people think of us can really hold us back from true self-love. It can really cloud that judgment. And so that's what I meant before about being brave enough to just show up who you really are. Know that it's your truth, and no matter what happens, you were brave enough to do that. And magic starts to manifest when you are brave enough to do that. So I would say write down something that you really want to do that you haven't done because for some reason you don't think that you're going to be good enough at it, or you're scared of what other people might think. Do that anyway. Move your body every single day. Strong body, strong mind. It certainly makes it easier for energy. But they're just a couple of things that I'll get you to ponder. I think that they're really powerful. And as I said, starting your day in a certain way is super powerful. I just got to quickly tell you, there's this woman who's a hero of mine. Her name's Tao Porch Lyon.
Yeah.
Now, she had her own yoga studio in New York City. She was incredible. She was a dancer and model in World War II and went on to have an amazing yoga career throughout her life. She said, I'm going to teach yoga till I'm 100. Well, she was still teaching 6 classes a week when she was 101 years old. She described herself as a yogi, a wine enthusiast, and dog lover. She taught trainers all over the world. Like hundreds of trainers would come from around the world to learn from her, right up until she was 101 years old. She passed very peacefully in her sleep at the age of 103.
Yeah.
And she always had this saying, every day when I wake up, I tell myself today is going to be the best day of my life. Your thoughts are powerful. Start your day with positivity and never procrastinate. This was this gorgeous saying that she had, and it was beautiful. And when I say move your body every day, she was a great inspiration of mine because she said that she practiced yoga every day her whole life since she was 8 years old. And she said, if you just do something, a little bit of something every single day, and even when I was recovering from my hip surgery, I could do like a little bit of something, you know, and get into my body. If you do a little bit of something every single day, you don't just wake up one day and your body say, oh, I'm sorry, you can't do that. You're 80 now. Oh, I'm sorry, you can't do that. You're 90 now. Because it's what you did yesterday. No worries. It's what you did the day before. And some days might be harder than others. But it's just a little something that you've got to invest in. And when you can love yourself that much, that no matter what, you've got 5 minutes or less, 1 minute, that's just for you. Every day you are affirming, I'm worth it. I am worth looking after. I am worth taking care of. And that will feed your energy better than nutrition, better than sleep, better than anything. That will be the fuel for your life.
Brilliant. That's awesome. That's a great note to finish on.
Been a really good chat, Rich.
Thank you.
I get a little passionate.
Been wonderful listening to everything that you've shared. Thank you. It's been that's a decent episode. I think there's some real meaty bits for people to get into. So it's been really good chatting and learning more about what you do, who you are, and how you do it. And you're no different on the screen than you are in real life. You're exactly the same. That authenticity is unwavering.
Oh, Rich, that's been really fun. Thanks for having me. And I hope there's just a little love bite in there for everybody listening.
Brilliant. Thanks, Niki. See ya.
Thanks, Rich.